Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shop Talk, hosted by the Triangle Area SQL Server Users Group. So this is our 3rd of July Memorial Edition of Shop Talk. I have with me two people who I was a little surprised were willing to show up. This way, we've got Tracy Baggiano. How you doing, Tracy?
All right. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing all right. Doing okay. And fresh from blowing stuff up, shooting fireworks, taking her sanctioned machine guns attached to the Land Rover and just driving around and shooting in the air. We've got Mala. How you doing, Mala?
Nice. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I'm doing good. Good evening, everyone. Happy long weekend.
And all those are transferable, so if you've got bids, put them into Mala. Starting bids like 40 grand. So, in case this is your first time here at Shop Talk, welcome. If it's not your first time, I guess maybe you're still welcome. It depends. It's from a Ram monster truck. I could see Mala in a proper monster truck, not just like a Dodge Ram, not even like a F-350, but we're talking tires that are bigger than her. I could see that. So, if this is your first time here at Shop Talk, basically this is a chance for us to get together and talk a bit about work-related stuff that's kind of fun. Maybe it's not fun. I don't know. Tracy's got a problem that's weird and or maybe fun. But basically, kick back a little bit, and it's Monday. You might have had to work today. If so, I'm sorry to hear that. And enhanced QC, yeah, I went low on the number. 40K might get you something, but for transferable, especially if it's going to be truck mounted, it's going to be more than that. But still, that's where the bids start. It's not where they end. Speaking of where things end, with Shop Talk, all things end eventually in some sort of rant. But today, I'm going to give Tracy an opportunity to rant a little bit. So then I'll give her just enough opportunity to rant, and then I'll cut her off in the middle and take it over for the next 20 minutes, because that's what we do.
Okay, so I've been stuck doing a lot of performance tuning, unfortunately, because developers write bad code. And, well, this particular store procedure was written 2 decades ago, in 2009. So, there's a lot of data that's been added, but it was doing an implicit conversion. So the developer could figure out how to get rid of it because he was just doing a convert on it, and you had to stick str in it to make it a string before you could do a convert so that it would actually get rid of the implicit conversion. But it didn't actually change the performance. So I just played with it and put a cast in there as well. And on my system, that actually made it faster. And I don't understand why. So I pulled the code down to just the portion of the join that was there, because this thing's got 15, 20 tables in this massive select. And I tested it 5 times in production with just the cast and 5 times with convert, and I got consistently about 1.1 second with the convert and about 900 to 750 milliseconds with the cast. And I don't know why. And I was hoping Kevin could tell me, but he can't.
That's true. I can't.
What's up with that?
I mean, my experience with all of this is cast and convert, if not exactly the same, almost always very close to the same in terms of performance. That one, I've never seen one be significantly worse than the other, especially when you're talking about just a straight up conversion. You're not talking about some weird numeric formatting or weird date formatting, one of the sub options for convert. Just normal convert, normal cast.
And also wanted to say, it's very rare that system functions are the reason why your performance is so bad, right? After you look at all the other reasons, I don't know. I haven't seen a ton of queries that are performing bad because you use some sort of a system function there.
Well, this was an implicit conversion, so I was trying to fix it because it's doing a join on it. So that means it was doing a full index scan instead of doing a seek because, I don't know how implicit conversions work. So that fixed that particular part of it once I got it not doing the implicit conversion part, but I was just, curious, why it was not performed, not doing it quite the way I thought it would. And
Yeah.
then,
Now,
like,
you were able to put together a code sample that you could show off a little bit.
yeah.
All right. While Tracy's putting that together, Anders says the answer is always more RAM. Lewis wants to see the code. SQL works in mysterious ways. It works in very normal ways. It's the engine underneath that works in strange ways.
The only thing I've seen different is the CPU, on cast versus convert, and that has hardly added up to any significant performance thing. So
we are in a very old compatibility level because we're on 2014 and we're running, I think that's 2012 because we're not on 2014 compat mode. I changed that and all kinds of things went chaotic. Don't do that. So I created a very basic table for my first table, ID, name. My second table, ID, number. Of our car 50. Don't ask me why it says number, but that's what the ID joins do. And I just needed something so I could do inserts. I gave it a primary key. I inserted 1 million records into each one. Blah, blah, blah. Compression. Made it pretty. Very, very basic tables. And my other table has a non-clustered index on this, and it actually uses it because it's a really complex query. But I can't get it to use it for this because it's not as complex. But this is the part of the join that was in there. It's joining one table via a left outer join to this particular subquery to this other table. And this was the original part right here that was throwing an implicit conversion. It was converting this ID from this table to here, doing an implicit conversion. So developers like, I don't know why it's doing that. I'm converting it to our car 50. Why is it doing an implicit conversion? So I just stuck that in there, gets rid of the implicit conversion. So I was playing around with it, stuck a cast in there instead. And for some reason, that's faster on my system.
Yeah,
not on this test, but on my production system.
Right. Now, for the implicit going to an explicit conversion, I mean, in that case, you're still going to have the same performance problem. It's ultimately an issue of there has to be an operation that occurs before you can perform the comparison. So
yeah, well, this helps out because it allows it to use the index. So
true.
That's the main performance gain we gained, but I don't understand the 200 to 350 millisecond difference between these two. In a much larger query, but there's really the only difference is this and this. And I literally ran each one 5 times because I was like, I wasn't going to tell the developer to change it because I'd already given him the convert, and I was just like playing around with it, and then the cast was consistently better. And it's just like, dude, I'm all about saving my milliseconds. I can show you an anonymized query plan for it, but I mean that technically in that particular version of the query plan, it doesn't even return any rows from this left outer join. So it's doing all this work for nothing, anyways. But hey, it's only returning 255 rows, and luckily we fixed it up so it doesn't read like a billion records. It was doing a lot. The only reason it came to light is because like it was getting bad plans, and I was having to recompile the proc, and it would get better. But they do a data load in the middle of the night, so now I update sets at like 3 a.m. instead. And hopefully that'll keep it better. But they also rewrote it and took out some code is not used anymore.
So from chat, Lewis is saying not seeing any differences in this particular output. Also, try to run things in different orders as well. I have seen that change the amount of time that it takes. So if you're consistently running cast then convert or convert then cast. And Anders is saying, I've seen where the 2014 cardinality estimator goes off into La La Land. Query stats and plans are the same when it finally comes up with one. Yeah, and I think this wouldn't be so much cardinality estimation difference. It's sounding like, well, it's sounding like it's a good question because I'm having trouble understanding why there would be a practical difference of significance.
Yeah, this is a 2014 box. I went ahead and ran it on a 2014 box, and that's what my production box is.
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and set the compat mode to the same as the production,
which is 2012
database.
Compatibility mode, right?
Yes, that way we would be testing what I was testing, you know. So, let's see, it's there, right there. We just got into this one was faster the first time. This time it's slower. Weird. I like ran it all kinds of weird different ways the other day and was just getting. I was consistently getting the same speed performance.
Right.
Of course, with a much more complicated plan. Let me see if I can. Does it show up? No, because I had to. Stop sharing this. And share this nice complicated.
So did you have a copy of the anonymized version of the actual execution plan for the real? Perfect. So this is the real query, not the one that Tracy made up, and is slightly different.
Yeah, it's very very complicated. And the warning is that, there's a function that uses a lot of CPU, which is just the bane of my existence right now. But right over here is that subquery. I looked, so I don't know where it was at. But it returns no rows. I mean, I don't know. But it's got like 50 million. It's got 50 million, tables in it. It's like got left outer joins, like 15 of them, and it's just like 3-4 inner joins, and it's so complicated that the anonymizer just changes the statement one.
And so this is which one would this be? The cast or the convert version?
It anonymizes it the same way.
Okay.
It doesn't really change this that much. It only changes the. Can't remember this changes just a little bit the CPU. The only thing that changes is like one of the, I think the CPU numbers change a little bit, but other than that, the plan itself doesn't change.
So as far as time differences, we're talking about 200 milliseconds on a query that takes 1.1 seconds to run?
Yeah, so that's about 20%. I mean, it seems like a lot for one.
So, I mean,
or maybe I just hit a fluke.
Yeah, if I saw it one time or two times, I would say there might be other things going on. Other operations are happening on that instance. Waiting for checking whatever weights might be associated with that particular session, which would be difficult in 2014. But there might be they're waiting for parallelism or waiting for a latch to become available. And
I guess I can try it a few more times on my production box and see if I'm still getting the same results.
Just curious, did you try option recompile, Tracy, so that it gets to print? Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Same thing. That.
Yep.
Okay. So it's not one plan influencing the other in some way or anything.
Yeah, I made sure that was done.
Yeah.
I was wanted to make sure I wasn't like pulling a, the wrong plan and stuff.
So Andrew
I
says,
actually ran it with recompile each time. So
I spent a month cutting 7 milliseconds from a procedure, lowered CPU 35% in production.
I've done it 10% over the last month. It's only at 25%, except when they run the archive at 11 a.m. But this is like this is a lot better. They were doing like like a trillion reads on this report because they don't. But I mean, I was just curious because it's very odd because I was getting. Like I said, it's very odd. I guess I'll just run some more and see if I can still consistently get it and see if I can't figure out how to reproduce it if I can consistently get it.
Right, because I would imagine that unless you were running through the debugger and checking the exact function calls that operate, we probably won't know for sure. But I've never had an experience where
board and go.
Yeah, calling somebody like that. I've never had an experience where that was consistently and definitely a substantial difference in using cast versus convert. Like if we were talking parse, obviously, yeah, parse is an order of magnitude slower, so that one's easy to catch. But as far as cast and convert go, even when you're doing weird stuff like string of an ID, I don't know. It feels a little weird.
I don't quite understand it. All right. Yeah, that's my brilliance for today. on to Kevin's brilliance while I go play and on my tests. Well, I guess it's tests. It's my read-only prod system.
Yeah, so what we'll do is, assuming that Tracy sorts it all out, figures out what the weirdness was, then we can have an update next episode. Solomon did want to see the query again, if you're willing to show it.
Oh, the basic query, yeah.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Andrew says stupid thing regarding the 7 milliseconds from a procedure. Well, 2 of them. Doing converts ran 20 million times a minute each. I mean, you'd think that if you're going to convert 20 million times, just get it right the first time. Marshall says, just worked on one procedure to cut 220 microseconds down to about 85 microseconds. But with volume, it still matters. Yeah, we lose on every call, but we make up for it in volume. Mala,
5,000 cuts.
That's right. Mala says, minor CPU time difference is literally the only difference I've seen between cast and convert. It's usually negligible with overall performance. And yeah, that's been my experience as well, Mala. And so here are the queries. There.
Yeah, it's basically, this is the only thing that's changing. It's the very end right here.
And the queries
if you need to email me or Twitter me, and I can email them to you. That way you don't have to type.
What data type is p.id? So
and I can email you my code to create test tables too.
Yeah, because p.id Solomon is an integer on 1. And
IDs are ints, and the names are varchar 50s. And the
right, so the thing called number is actually a string because one of the rules of database naming is that if it has number in the name, it is always a string.
It's technically like the record number on our end, so I just...
Which...
kind of silly, I don't know why an ID turns into a number.
Yeah, numbers of varchar 50.
Yeah, of course. And it allows it to be null, too. I mean, what? Which is why it's returning nothing. Because it can't find anything to match it. But yes, I've got tables here to, like, create it and stuff like that. So if you want the code, just ping me in some form or fashion, and I will send it to you. And if I come up with a better reproducible set of code, I can send that to you. That way you don't have to do so much work. Because work's hard.
So Andrew says code first at its finest. Something like that. Lewis says, I'm not sure if you were being snarky. Oh, I definitely was. But I agree that number is typically the class name of a string value, like PO number. Yeah, or social security number, which is always stored as a string, or house number, which is usually a string. Yeah, it's a little bit of a poke in the eye of
I
naming
figured
is
soon
hard.
we were converting ID, which is a number, and then trying to match it to the number. And I'm like, yeah, I just left it as number. ID number. I don't know. We don't name anything, right?
So Solomon was
Database
asking, why is the string, the str function being used there? Seems extraneous.
Because if you just do the convert, it still shows up as an implicit conversion.
Yeah, so Tracy was trying to make
Execution
it
type.
an explicit conversion versus implicit. And unless you're in Excel, then it's totally different.
I was trying to get rid of our implicit conversions to help with our CPU and stuff.
And Lewis sums it up well. I think we can all agree joining a string to an integer is the true problem here. It is the real WTF.
That is the true problem. Yes, it is. We did find, on our system, the CPU time went down. on my mock system, it goes up. So my test data is not good. So I need to come up with a better test data to test with, because mocking data does not work as well as having production data. Because this actually went down when I was testing it in comparison to like doubling.
Yeah, but it's just the vagaries of a particular data set. Are you saying they can't use the GUI to design tables? Oh, Mala, you have hit us into a perfect jumping off point for the next article. So this article is in the new stack, and I don't think I'm going to make fun of the article too much. I'll make fun of the article a little bit. Let's go with this Brave tab. But I'm going to make fun of the concept a lot more than the article. So this is from David Castle, not too long ago, and basically was about a new concept language that is visual based. And when I say new concept language, what I mean is somebody else decided to create a new language based off of concepts that we've been working with and kind of laughing at for 30 plus years, while also kind of wishing that they existed appropriately, except that whenever they get created, they're horrible abominations. Rational Rose may ring a bell to some people who are graying in the hair a little bit. So, like Next had 25 years ago? Yeah, well, I mean, I just dropped Rational right there. Or you could think of a dozen other languages and programs that are graphical interfaces for giving people an opportunity to program when otherwise they wouldn't be able to. And also, a couple of last comments. Has converting number to int and then join to PID been tried? That's a good question, Solomon. We'll ask Tracy when she returns. And Anders, I'm saying it doesn't matter how a non-database person designs tables. Yeah, that's usually ends up not very well. So the idea behind this language is non-hardware specific code, which that's good, like machine code or Java bytecode, and a new kernel for microcontrollers. So user interface for some sort of schedulization of tasks. And this fellow's been working on this since the early 1990s, or at least at some level. So here's a little bit of the vision of this language, I suppose. And you have a starting point, you have multiple processes, you're performing operations as blocks, and then I assume dragging and dropping these lines, and hey, you've got my exit point. Which, as far as these sorts of programs go, it's interesting enough. And again, I don't want to criticize the language or the people behind it too much. But I will say visual programming language or no-code programming languages tend to be very brittle. Sure you do. Okay, I'm a little petty. I'm not enormously petty, just mildly petty. The problem is these sorts of things are really good for getting somebody started. Think of in our world, SQL Server integration services or Informatica or one of those types of processes, or if you're in the AI space, Alteryx, things like that tend to be the closest analog to a general purpose programming language that is no code. And the problem that you run into is these sorts of languages can work well with the problems that the actual developers of the languages anticipated. But as soon as you leave the sandbox of what that developer expected, things go completely sideways. With generic programming language, regular keywords based on like languages we've had for decades, even you go a little crazy with something like Lisp. You go functional programming languages and imperative languages, object-oriented or whatever. You still have these concepts of keywords and structure. You can use that to abstract a lot of problems to design broader solutions for uncommon problems or things that the original developers never anticipated. Whereas with a graphical language, either you got the block or you don't got the block. That's problem number one that we typically see. That, here's integration services. Well, I can drag on this component. I can drag on this component. I can link them up. But, okay, I've got a component for FTP. Well, I need to connect to this SFTP server. You can't do that. You can buy a third-party component and do that. Okay, well, I'll do that. Okay, now I need to connect to FTPS, which is totally different from SFTP. True story. Hang on. That component won't work. You need another one, except that other one doesn't exist. There may be one at this point, but back when I had to solve the problem the first time, that one doesn't exist. So what can you do? Oh, well, it's easy. Just create a script component and then write all the code yourself. Like, okay, so your graphical no-code interface has forced me to now write a bunch of code, when I could have just written the code to begin with and probably have things be nicer in the end. So that's problem number one, that you get boxed in very quickly. Problem number two is, as soon as you try to scale this thing out, as soon as you try to say, well, it's not one flow that I need to write. Maybe this could be indicative of, this is an operation for an API controller. Okay, now I have 30 API controllers. Or I have 6 API controllers, each of which has 9 endpoints. As soon as you start getting into this, and I need to make a change for all of them. Now I'm updating 54 user interfaces, which probably means quite a bit of time waiting for the thing to load and to click and to drag and to mess up and to misclick, and I need to double click, and I need to, hopefully I can tab through to change numbers, or if I need to add a new column to all of these different things. It just gets to a mess. This is why you switch to Informatica. All right, here's where I'm showing my age. I haven't used Informatica in a long time, but my recollection is it wasn't better. I won't say that it was worse because, again, recollection and age, but I don't think it was better. And even looking at Azure Data Factory, with the user interfaces that they're pushing on there, well, you run into the same issues. Or Azure Machine Learning. I can build an ML pipeline. You can. But what if you want to do something slightly different than the 90-some components that they have available? Well, the answer is code first. And now here's the tutorial, and here's the next 12 hours for you trying to learn how to write this code in a way that Azure ML will actually accept it. I am today years old when I learned Kevin isn't ageless. Technically, I age backwards like Merlin. So I got that going for me. For massive data back in 2013, SSIS wasn't even close. I can buy that. Integration services definitely has its limits in terms of how much data it was willing to process. Part of that was you were limited to one machine unless you did some really weird stuff. The other part was strange things it did with buffers. The curious case of Benjamin Button. I mean, that's true. That's another option for me. I do prefer Merlin, though. So this sounds like this is actually mostly a language for microcontrollers and stuff along that, rather than a general purpose programming language for regular PCs. But maybe not. I mean, okay, barely ran under Windows 7. Update the software, come back with a better product. So I'm rewriting my software in Java. I mean, that's your first mistake, but... And streamlining the IDE. So yeah, that's where I wanted to go with this. Basically, you're going to be stuck in a no-code programming language. You've got a lack of extensibility. I rank that thing up there with F#. Anders? If I was capable of showing crazy eyes, of having the whites on both sides of my eyes show, I would definitely be showing them right now. Them's fighting words. And I will see you at dawn with truck-mounted RPGs. I'll borrow Mala's. F# is a beautiful programming language. I will have no brooking of disagreement on that front. It is a beautiful language. It's got arrows. It's got pointy things. It's got fewer pointy things than C#. It's got a lot fewer the curly braces that might give you like a paper cut. So NP. P equals NP for very large values of P. That's what I got for this article. So yeah, repetition is hard, as we saw with my attempting to summarize this article. There's a lack of extensibility, as we saw in my inability to get past rational rows, and how I was in college and I really wanted it to be good and it wasn't any good, and now all no-code programming languages are broken for me. I mean, I do like them for certain things. If you need to do a one-off task, I think a no-code language works out pretty well. Something like Airflow, something like integration services, Azure Data Factory, ML pipelines, these sorts of things work well for get me started, give me a basic task, a basic operation where I don't have to think too hard and I don't need to read an API. Because reading is hard, math is hard, let's go shopping. There's probably a lot of coding that things like this could work for. Yeah, if you fit into the expected scenario for the developer building the thing, then there's probably a lot that you can do with it. I do agree. So that's why I don't want to trash the concept too much. I don't want to make it sound like, though, that this is either a revolutionary idea or that, oh, well, program-based coding is going to go away entirely. We're going to have these no-code solutions. Yes, you do. Not entirely. 60%. No more than 60%. I'm only trashing this 60%. 40% of it, not trashing. Just want to set expectations low enough. Sort of like that Mad TV sketch of lowered expectations. The dating service for programming languages. So yeah, that's what this article is about. Now, my other article, and chat, I gotta warn you, I'm running low on articles this week. So, next article comes from a Hollywood Reporter, so you know it's got to be good. Warner Brothers signs a deal for AI-driven film management system, and the biggest takeaway that I got from this article is, if it tells Warner Brothers not to cast Ezra Miller as a superhero, it's probably going to save them money. So the idea here is there's a company, Senolytic, which sounds very much like cynical. and uses the AI-driven project management system. The shows can't be any worse than they are now. Oh, this isn't the shows, Andrews. This is actually the movies. This is Warner Brothers, the film studio, as opposed to Warner Brothers, the schlock television show producer. So the idea here is getting an estimation of how much is a movie probably going to sell. How many tickets are they going to make? How many tickets are they going to sell? How many butts are they going to fill in seats? How much money will ultimately the studio make? They make movies still every once in a while. They don't tend to do very well, but they still make them. But under their system, they're going to leverage predictive analytics, essentially try to understand, hey, I've got these actors, I've got this type of movie, these situations. What's the expected return on investment here? Am I going to make money on this film or not? And the hope for them is that they're going to be able to cut down on some of the overall cost of film production, where they could say early on, oh, this one's not going to work very well. That's their hope. So Marshall says, this sounds like the same way that Snakes on a Plane went through evolutionary development and feedback, combining together the worst of all possible options. So Snakes on a Plane being the first meme movie, the first movie that got internet traction because they're making fun of it. The marketing people and the producers didn't realize that just because everybody's talking about your movie doesn't mean they're going to go see the movie. They're just making fun of how dumb the concept is, but that doesn't mean they're actually going to see the thing. They're not going to pay you for that privilege. And that was why Snakes on a Plane was so interesting, because that was the first time that we saw a movie really get so much buzz. Typically, things get buzz, even if they're controversial, you still get a lot of people seeing them. In part because, I want to see the controversy. That was part of like when Texas Chainsaw Massacre was doing their advertising. They were pushing the whole controversy angle, even more than there really was controversy. Because that's going to get people to see it. Oh, it's controversial. I need to see it. Soap is more for its memes. It generated some fantastic memes. Soap operas, Mala, or like soap? You're on mute, though. Oh, you're no longer on mute. We just can't hear you. So while Mala's figuring that out, it made $62 million, additional $25 million on DVD. Thinking about how much that thing cost to produce, you imagine it probably lost a significant amount of money. Call it 33 mil to make. Yeah, so it's 33 mil to make, and then probably another 30 million or so to get the advertising, to get the studio take. Remember that $62 million includes the amount that goes to the theaters, which is at least half of the film takes. So at best, they broke even on the film. Most likely, they lost money on it. Soap is Snakes on a Plane. Okay, gotcha. Right, yeah, their fantastic memes came out of it. And so their marketing people thought, oh, this is going to be great. That engagement, that level of engagement, even if it's silly, they're going to love it. And they found out, no, you don't have to love it. Usually double the original film cost, add in the marketing, and in this case, they probably spent even more thinking they had a big hit on their hands. Yeah, that's quite possible. So, yeah, you take... Hollywood accounting is all a mess. They can make tens of millions of dollars look like a total loss. They can make hundreds of millions of dollars look like tens of millions, or tens of millions look like hundreds of millions, depending on what they need to do for purposes of taxation. So you got that. But to the extent that we see the books, we see at least what they claim, and based on that, yeah, Marshall's right. It's usually you take the production cost and you usually double that. You can see some additional things for reshoots. If you have something that's big budget and needs significant reshoots, that can change the production costs from the time that they book the things. Usually you don't have to share those details until the end of the tax year. So there are some other costs underneath. Like, it used to be that print costs were a significant part of, it was P&A, print and advertising. Prints are no longer really a thing because you don't print film anymore and ship it to theaters. You just you upload it. It's on servers. You can go grab the film from the server. But now you also have to consider, the costs of streaming, the bandwidth costs, things that weren't included in this before that are capitalized under different parts of the ledger. So it's all a numeric mess. It's all accountants knife fighting each other and just trying to make the numbers work the best. I feel like I'm in my theme park chats right now. This sounds like a terrible idea. Yeah, what I will say for sure, they even mention this here. While the platform won't predict what will be the next billion-dollar surprise like Joker, it will reduce the amount of time executives spend on low-value repetitive tasks and give them better dollar figure parameters. What I think is going to do is it's going to lock you in on, this is what worked 5 years ago, and so obviously that's still going to work now. Or even worse, this was trained on data from these years, and therefore Charles Bronson is going to be a big seller for your action film. Now, in fairness, Charles Bronson was a great actor. I enjoyed Charles Bronson significantly. But yeah, even more remakes. Yeah, so I understand. But then again, that's been movies for the last couple of decades. Just imagine how many superhero movies they'll be making based on the AI in that data set. Meanwhile, the superhero genre is going the way of the Western. This is one of the interesting things in film as well, that you tend to have ups and downs, and some genre that's huge. You think of noir in the late 50s, or the thriller film, or the Western in the 50s, 60s, even into the 70s. You have action movies through the 80s and early 90s, superhero movies for the past 10, 15 years. Yeah, 15 years, I'll call it. And you have those cycles where things fall out. You turn it from, this is interesting, into, this is the same direct that you've pushed out 5 separate times now. Why am I going to see this? Oh, it's part of the extended cinematic universe. You have to see what's going to happen with this third-tier character you've never heard of and don't care about. Maybe this will cut the time to the next Top Gun by a few decades. I would like to see octogenarian Tom Cruise piloted a F-14. I would not mind that. I mean, he's going to look exactly the same. Be like, the man is, and he's also going to be married to a 25-year-old woman. 24. At 25, they get sent to the ranch. So that is the problem. AI has no way to feel what could be based on the product that is new but amazing. Yeah, and I think this is a problem that they will likely run into. This is one of the things you get with predictive analytics. Predictive analytics is good at trying to forecast what may happen in the near term based on what has happened in the past. And I will say you can do a decent job of it and get somewhere. Creative work is going to be, I think it's going to be more of a challenge. I think also part of the issue is how you parameterize your model. Like, if you're saying, I want these actors, I want this style. I mean, I remember a game back in the 90s, I think it was. It might even have been for Mac OS 9, give you an idea, or 8, give you an idea of how old it was. But you put in, oh, well, I've got this much budget, I'm going to have this character, this type of movie. You give it a name, and it tells you how you did. Here's how many dollars you pulled in for Arnold Schwarzenegger in this movie. It's a action, adventure, love comedy. and action adventure romantic comedy, which, by the way, True Lies actually was pretty good. But the problem is, to the extent that this is accurate, it's based off of what has already happened. Yeah, Movie Tycoon. Okay, that might have been the name of the game. I forget. It's been so long since I played it. But you can end up with some cases. You will probably end up with cases where you're drilling into the same ground that you've been drilling into because, like the proverbial drunk at the street lamp, it's not where your keys are, but at least this is where the light is. And I think you end up with that in filmmaking. And will that be better than what they're doing today? There's a chance. But it all depends on how you parameterize. It depends on your model of the world. And where they're hoping it will improve is actually like this scenario where New Line paid $15 million for a film out of Sundance that didn't do so well. Or Warner had several misfires from 2019, which, when you ruin Godzilla, when you make Godzilla not great, you know you've messed up. I can't wait for our AI overlords. You have lived 53 years on beer and red meat. Here is your beer and red meat diet. You will live to 106. In fairness, Anders, anybody who's 106, you start asking them and their diet is like cigarettes and smoke from the factory and raw meat. I think once you get to like 100, you can do whatever you want at that point. My savings can't survive that long. That's a fair point. But don't worry, there will be another AI service that will figure out that you're no longer productive to society and kill you off like in Logan's Run. So you got that going for you. Unfortunately, they're going to figure out. They're going to figure out pretty quickly that we're all just kind of riding on the edge there. And the real sad thing is that we're going to end up in like cyberpunk dystopia, except that we don't get cybernetic enhancements. We don't get any of the really cool neo-noir style of buildings. We just get the constant drudgery of artificially intelligent organizations crunching down on everything. So, but right now, an AI cannot make any creative decisions. What is good is crunching numbers and breaking down huge data sets, showing patterns that would not be visible to humans. Yeah, I do think this is a fair summarization of the point that if you want to know, I want to analyze what has worked well in the past, or try to find commonalities in what sorts of films have done better or worse, you might be able to. You might be able to make good use of a service like this. But it's also going to be limited to the minds of the people who develop the service and the biases that are set up in the minds of those people. Like if you believe that the problem with movies is X, but that the people who are putting this together aren't measuring, modeling, or thinking about X, then you're not going to find that in your data set. And so you might find some sort of analog that sort of gets you to X, but there's no guarantee of this. What that means is you might end up with a scenario where I think this is the way that we should go, but it's actually the wrong way simply because we haven't solved the actual problem. What we've done is we've assumed the problem away, and by assuming the problem away, the problem suddenly disappeared. I can come back and do the SQL Server, the 2099 upgrades from the last SQL Server 2000 instances. I'm waiting for the Y2.038K crisis. That's where we're really going to shine. All of those 32-bit programs that fail over in 2038 because you ran out of time. I'm waiting for that. That's when they'll really want to pay me. Speaking of which, I think there's some COBOL jobs available, folks. I will buy the database design book that Lewis writes when he's 100. I would do that too. Although I realize these SQL Server 2022 instances I'm installing, if we run them until extended support runs out, I could retire before them. That's not bad. Plus, if you put them in Azure, you get that extra couple of years. So in case you need that extra couple of years to get you over the edge, you got that going for you. Am I not 100? You don't look a day over 90, Lewis. A very young 90. So with this, we got about 10 minutes. I'm happy sitting around shooting the breeze. I did run out of things to cover on here. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Shop Talk, drop them in chat. Otherwise, you can blindside us afterwards. That's what we're normally good for. And hopefully, next episode, Tracy will have closure on the cast versus convert oddities. We'll find out. But
we'll find out. Very bizarre.
A little bit bizarre, but yeah, we'll see. So with that, I think we are going to wrap things up just a few minutes early, so we can get out there and do whatever. Launch fireworks at your neighbors. By the way, if you do launch fireworks, make sure not to light the firework and have it go into the van that is full of fireworks, causing a massive chain explosion that involves you and 9 of your closest friends and or relatives to lose their eyebrows. Do not recommend that. I saw a video of that. It was something. That video.
By Kevin.
Andrew saw the video too. So I recommend not doing that. Make sure.
Any other pro tips, Kevin?
Any pro tips? Yeah.
Don't hold them in your hand when they go off.
Correct. M80s are not firecrackers. As cool as it sounds. Nor are they grenades. You don't light them and throw them.
Just in general, don't aim them anywhere near cars or houses.
Yeah.
Away from those type things.
Yeah, and always make the old person in the group fire them off. Yeah, the oldest person in the group is the person who is least likely to need all of their fingers. Everybody
That's why
knows
he
that.
put a double L on hilarious.
So, blow stuff up safely. Anders probably has that video. I don't want to open it up because then Twitch may catch some sort of noise and say, oh, well, this is copyrighted material or something. But yeah, check out that video if you want a little bit of, oh my gosh, what is wrong with you people? It is loud. Yeah, it does get pretty loud in the video, and it gets very dumb in the video. So don't do that. Basically, watch that video as a pro, try to understand what they did wrong, and then say, I will never do that in my life. And that's probably the best advice that I can give.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, the stories I can tell. Yeah. People, alcohol and fireworks seem like a great match, but they're not. Friend worked at an ammo maker. So this reminds me of the Bugs Bunny cartoon where his job was to take the hammer and hit the bombs as they come out to see if there are any duds. They made fireworks for New Year's Eve in Norway. We got all the rejects. A lot of rejects. Matches and fireworks do mix. Yeah, they can. Just you gotta understand what the fuse is for. I mean, that's the idea. Understand what the fuse is for. understand how long that fuse length is, and I don't know. I would say don't shoot bottle rockets at your little brother. I might be slightly hypocritical in that. I don't recall if I ever actually aimed it at him or just near him. But regardless, there were a lot of rejects. Yeah, that's something I can believe. In-laws only. So with that, we're gonna wrap things up for tonight because I got nowhere else I can go here. Time for some bagpipe music to keep my neighbors up tomorrow.
Take care of your pets, everybody, with all the noise.
Yep.
My poor cat will be up here hiding with me.
Little pet vest.
Yeah.
The thunder shirt.
Yeah. No, she doesn't like the thunder. I mean, let alone all the fireworks and stuff. So I remember the first year we moved in, we live across from the Hindu temple, and I can't remember the name of the holiday, but they set off fireworks for that. And I thought people were like getting shot or something because, like, you know, it's not a holiday I know. So it's like the cat's like going ballistic all over the place, and then I was like, oh, it's just fireworks. So I was trying to figure out what was going on.
Well, I don't know of a better way to end this episode. So everybody, remember next Tuesday we've got our advanced DBA meeting. Third Tuesday main meeting. Fourth Tuesday data science and business intelligence meeting. We'll have another episode of Shop Talk in 2 weeks on Monday. And until we see each other again, everyone, take care.